Welcome to the 858 Water, Waste and Energy Committee meeting of 12th of August 2025. I declare this meeting open at 9 a.m. Big welcome to our committee meetings and visiting councillors and, of course, our hard-working city officers and our chamber staff. Just a reminder that our meetings are open to the public and live stream, and we, of course, welcome anyone that is joining us from home. So starting with item 1, attendance and apologies. I do have an apology from Councillor Patterson to move, which I'll move if I can give a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Young. All those in favour? Councillor Doran. We're just going to move Councillor Patterson's apologies. Yep. And that is carried. I've also received notification that our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hamill, will be a late arrival for today's meeting. Moving on to item 2, leave of absence. I note that there are no requests for a leave of absence. Item 3, confirmation of minutes. So the minutes for meeting 857 held on the 22nd of July 2025 are to be confirmed. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thanks, Councillor Wilkinson. Seconded by Councillor Doran. All those in favour? And that is carried. Item 4 is conflict of interest declarations. Do any councillors have a conflict to declare against any of the items in today's agenda? No? Excellent. Item 5 is the committee forward planning schedule, which I know is starred. Does anybody need that opened for any questions? We'll deal with it in start items. So the start items are the forward schedule in 5.1 and 6.1, the Abbott Park Channel Naturalisation Demonstration Project outcome. If nobody needs those unstar, I'll grab a mover for those two. Thanks, Councillor Wilkinson. Seconder, Councillor Doran. All those in favour? Excellent. And that is carried. So moving to our reports and presentations for today's agenda, 6.2 is supporting Koala fodder supply. And I can see Kathy's coming out to join us. Thank you. Is there a presentation or just questions?
Just questions through the chair.
Does anybody have any questions resulting from the report of 6.2? No?
This was about Koala, but it came up as a project that kind of came out of the Merrimack Green Waste, where we were moving the Koala fodder to a new location. That's how I read it.
Through the chair, yes. So this report came because we were requested to come back and give the status on Koala fodder across the city as a whole, because the moving of the green waste pad from the stage 6 Merrimack STP site was going to the front end of where the Koala fodder is on the WRC site. So essentially this report...
This came out of that conversation?
Yes.
I recall it was a request from Councillor Young. Councillor Young, were you satisfied with the contents of the report?
Thanks. I was very pleased to see the report and the deliberate intention of Council to maintain these plantations and to thrive to or desire to enhance that in the future. I just had one question, if you don't mind, Chair.
Absolutely.
I noted that there's inclusion of the small Koala supermarket at Country Paradise Parklands in Nerang, which is a great little feature, but we are probably looking at having to relocate it from its current location in the park to another location. And I'm just wondering if there's any funding available to support that measure. You can take it on notice if you like.
Yes, I'll take that on notice, Councillor.
And I'll wait for that positive answer. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
If there's no further questions, would you like to move the item, Councillor Young, given it was from your generation and Councillor Wilkinson is going to second? Would you like to open debate, Councillor Young?
I think I'll keep it very brief. I've already said what I think is important. That it's good. It demonstrates that the city has a good intention in terms of providing koala fodder to Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary, and indeed there are other partners in the city that benefit from these plantations. it's good effort. It's a good summary report. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Young. Would anybody like to speak against the motion that we have before us? No? I'll take that as your close, Councillor Young. And with that, we'll take the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimous. Thank you, officers. Okay, the next item, we have a presentation on 6.3, which is Lift the Lid Organic Bin Contamination Behaviours Change Activity. Another mouthful.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to call out to the room Christy Otts, Tony Lee and Chris Owen. As you know, organics is a wonderful product that we collect here across the city, and contamination is an issue that we need to deal with that product to form a saleable product at the end. Tony is going to do a presentation on our project that we've been doing and continue to do till next year.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. Thank you for having us this morning. Today's presentation, Lift the Lid, is exactly what it says, essentially. That's what we'll be talking about, lifting the lid on our organic bins. Let me just get this one. There we go. Organics is a priority waste stream for the federal, state and local governments. It's important for us to divert this material from landfill. However, it is really important that the quality of the material that we recover has as low a contamination as possible. We know that contamination in this organic stream, the more the contamination, the higher the cost to process this material, and we can also end up with financial penalties and or increased cost of processing. Since the green organic bin became part of the standard bin set for most freestanding homes, the contamination rate has increased. Oh, do you want me to lift this up? Is that better? Yes, sorry everyone. The contamination rate has increased to just over 2%, and at times it has even reached as high as 4%, which is problematic. The most common contaminants in our green organic bin include wood such as furniture and packaging, ceramics, building materials, bagged green organics, general waste and food. I'll go to the next one.
Sorry? What did you say? Something green organics?
Bagged green organics.
Oh,
so that means... Sorry?
Badge or bagged?
Bagged.
Oh, so in a plastic bag. Green organics in a plastic bag.
Yes.
Sorry to just...
No, that's okay. So essentially people are trying to do the right thing, but because they want to keep their bin clean or for various other reasons, they put that material into a plastic bag, which then makes it a contaminating item, and we can't recycle that material.
Are you saying that when people put green organics from their kitchen that aren't meat products into their green bin, that's not considered a contaminant?
So food going into the green organics bin at the moment is considered a contaminant because currently we're only accepting garden waste. Right. Eventually we would like to get to receive food, but currently we can only accept garden organics. So shrubs, leaves, things like that.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
Excuse me. So the Lift the Lid project, it will be a state-funded activity. So the state has provided councils funding to address contamination in the green organics bins. The city has been fortunate enough to receive $700,000 in funding for this activity. Now, around $217,000 of that will go towards a citywide awareness campaign, and this campaign will include marketing and community engagement activities. These activities we've done previously before to try and encourage the correct use of bins in our city. $483,000 has been put forward for a bin tagging program, or something called Lift the Lid. Now, essentially, this bin tagging is a program where we look inside people's bins to be able to give them feedback. It's a positive approach to working directly with our community. Now, this program would reach about 20% or around 26,000 of our green organics bin households. Why bin tagging? Well, the results of bin tagging show that when these programs are rolled out, you have reduced contamination, improved resource recovery, enhanced education and awareness, and positive community engagement. What does that actually look like, though, as a program? So bin tagging involves officers visiting the curbside to look into people's bins. For the City of Gold Coast, we would do this twice. The first time would be to get a baseline to understand how many contaminants are inside each property's bins. And then the second visit, we would look to see how that property has improved through the feedback that we provide to them. So officers visit the curbside and only look in bins that are presented curbside. They identify the type of contamination and the number of contaminants inside the bin. They record that information and provide feedback to the resident directly. Excuse me. So you can see from the tags here, we provide feedback in a number of ways. The first one is through a star system. So the higher the stars, obviously the less contamination that's in the bin. The lower the stars, the more work the person has to do to correctly use their bin. Then we also let them know what they've put into the bin that shouldn't be there. So we're trying to give them that education right at site where they make those mistakes. On the reverse side of the tag, we have information about what goes into the bin, giving them that correct behaviour they need to follow, as well as links, appropriate links to other web pages, for example, to help them know what to do. Other non-identifying information is collected at the time. So how full the bin is, what types of green organics has been put into that bin. They'll also take non-identifying photos, and this is used for quality assurance purposes and to also you collect for our learnings as part of our reports. Then following that, they collect that information and then we come back a second time and provide the same feedback. The results of that intervention will be recorded and we'll have a report at the end of the program. The intent of this approach is to focus only on engagement and encouragement direct to our residents. It's a positive approach to providing education. Now, bin tagging programs have been successful across Australia. For example, in Logan City Council, their contamination rates are at the lowest that they've been since 2013, since they've been rolling out their bin tagging program, and it's been going for around 3.5 years. In Queensland, through funding from the state, there are 10 other councils that will be rolling out bin tagging programs, including the Scenic Rim, Ipswich, Logan, Redlands and the Sunshine Coast as well. The timeline for this activity, so we have our presentation today and then following we'll go to procurement of the contractor. We'll be using an experienced contractor who has rolled out bin tagging programs before. In September, we'll do our activity design and notification to the residents to let them know if they're participating in this bin tagging program. Then October, November will be phase 1 of the implementation. And then December, January, we won't do any engagement because during this time, people's behaviours and use of the bin will change.
Can I just ask a question about this slide, Chair? You've got October, November 26. Is that really 25?
Through the Chair, yes, it is, Councillor Young. Mm-hmm. Then in February, May, we'll recommence and move to phase 2 of the implementation, and then June we'll have our wrap-up of reports, which will include results, learnings and further recommendations for how to address contamination moving forward. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Councillor Doran.
Thank you, Chair. I just was curious as to if you could expand on the notification of residents that fit within the area. Did I miss? Have you already determined where you're going to do it? And is it an opt-in, or will they just be you're in this program?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor. We will be identifying areas that have been shown to have high levels of contamination. So we're trying to address where we're getting most of that material. We get that information, for example, through our waste collection contractor reports that we get daily that tell us how many bins have been that have minor or major contamination, and we'll be looking to address those areas. That detail hasn't been finalised yet. We'll work on that as part of that in September through that service planning. As far as whether it's an opt-in or an opt-out, residents don't get to choose whether they opt out of this particular program. Once a bin is presented curbside, that material becomes the responsibility of the city, for example, and the intention, particularly with this green organics bin, which shouldn't have anything really that's personal or identifying about that resident, is really just that whole positive education, and that's what we're focusing on when we deliver this information. And like I said, the contaminants that are in the bins are things like building materials, wood, ceramics, that type of thing.
Just to follow up on that, so would it be, you mentioned that the areas will be selected based on the reports received from collections. So will you then, I'm just trying to drill down a little bit more, will you then take, for example, there's a lot of red dots in this particular area, we'll do all of that area, or will it be more targeted to, we've had problems with this house and this house or this bin, so we're going to do quite sporadically around the city? I'm just trying to see whether it be clustered or whether it will be more targeted to the direct information received from the collections.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you again for your question. Councillor, we will be looking at doing areas rather than house to house. It's much more efficient to do areas together, clustered together. And through these reports, we're able to identify those sort of hotspot areas, I suppose, and be able to target it looking at those particular areas to reduce the contamination.
Just one final question, Chair. And you mentioned this as programs that's Logan as an example that where it's working, but it's also going to be rolled out in other areas. The not having an opt-in and saying we're going to be checking your waste, I can see benefits to both, but do you think there's potential for adverse results given if people don't choose to be a part of it, therefore they're not willing to try to improve behaviour, they could ignore the tagging in turn and then not change behaviour, but if they're more likely to want to get that information and be a constructive means for change, do you think they're more likely to then give you better results because they're willing to listen?
Through you, Madam Chair, one of the reasons why we don't look at doing those high contaminant customers only is because of something that we've referred to lightly before as light neighbourhood shaming.
Sorry, can you use that one more time? What was that? You referred to as?
Light neighbourly shaming. So when your neighbours are participating in a program, it's quite common for the neighbours who are doing well to talk to the other neighbours and let them know, I got 5 stars today. That positive, proud behaviour, that neighbourhood pride, then uplifts those who have bad behaviour, who aren't responding to things like targeted contamination notices, for example. It's about getting the many to uplift the few.
Right, thank you. So.
Thanks. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. And I just had one question. Will there be a similar program actually rolled out for the yellow recycling bins as well?
Through you, Madam Chair, not at this point. When we flip to the recycling bin, we're looking to reduce contamination as we are with the green bin. Our contractor has advised us that we don't have a significantly higher level of contamination in our yellow bin. So at this point, we are working with state government on the Lift the Lid program to target it through education before we move to those different programs.
Okay, thank you.
I've got Councillor Martin, then Councillor Young.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I'm not sure if I missed it, but how many residences do you think we'll be testing?
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for your question, Councillor. We're looking at approximately 26,000 households.
Thank you. And do you think we'll get a sample from, say, every division across the city? Or you mentioned some hot spots. I wonder if we won't, essentially. Yeah, so...
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for the follow-up question. We'll be looking to target the high contaminating areas first because obviously we want to drive down that contamination rate. When we look at the data, which we'll be doing during next month in consultation with the experienced contractor we'll be working with, we'll have a better understanding of where we're going. We absolutely, through the awareness campaign that we'll be doing, we're looking to go citywide with that. So we'll be definitely reaching as many people as we can through that campaign. And with our community events that we'll want to be attending, we'll be trying to go across as many of the divisions or as a broader reach as we can with that. And then when we look at the data, that will really drive that. This activity, we've not done bin tagging before in the city, so this is a real opportunity to understand how effective this can be. So that's again why we're trying to target those high contaminating areas. We can certainly break it down when we have a look at it to see how far we can go. Currently, there's probably 6 divisions that have the most contaminating areas at the moment, but that's just an initial overview. We'd really want to look further at the data first.
Sorry, last question, and without asking you to name Shane suburbs, but are you? Because obviously I'm not sure if I have a division that has a high contamination rate. Are you able to describe the type of areas? Like, is it more rural? Is it more urban? Is it coastal?
Describe the
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that question, Councillor. Look, the areas do vary, and I will say they're on either side of the highway, for example, and they do include both rural and more suburban areas. There really isn't a particular region that we're going for, but it just depends. I think mostly it sometimes comes down to whether there are a high number of tenants versus owners, things like that. But that detail, in all honesty, is part of what we'll do in the next step. So please don't take that as gospel right at this point, because we really need to delve into that data and make sure we are getting that particular part right. So we have a general understanding at the moment, but we do want to look at that as part of that service planning activity.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to add on to that, Councillor, for the last 12 months we have reported in the WWE papers as to contamination rates, so a curious councillor might look at those.
I had Councillor Young and then Councillor Tozer.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to broaden the question or the topic a little. I'm interested in behavioural change and things that encourage that, and I see that that's the endeavour here, is to encourage people to learn how they can do better and assist with the overall program. That's good. The state government's obviously been quite generous with this program, and I know that the state government has other investments that encourage behavioural change. For example, there's a program involving commercial operators, for example, restaurants or cafes, and discouraging the use of plastics, single-use plastics, and that's a great result. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that of the committee endeavours that are going on in my area, and no doubt other places, but in particular at Country Paradise Parklands, when we have big major events there, we require each organiser to enlist companies that help sort the waste and encourage customers to put waste in the right bins so that we're achieving fantastic recovery rates. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago at the Botanical Bazaar, which probably was attended by about 6,000 people, it resulted in just 16 kilograms of waste to landfill, which is pretty dramatic. But those things, of course, cost money, and the organisers providing that additional support. And I wonder if, as a broad question, which doesn't have to be answered now, but something you might hear later, if there's the possibility of the state government or the council supporting those sorts of programs where we're actively encouraging behavioural change at the time, and it's being responded to by community very well. In fact, this year at Botanical Bazaar they had dishwashing, so you could just at each cafe where you got your fast food, the food trucks, you'd get it on a ceramic plate, just a regular plate or in a cup, and you could just deposit those in locations around the place. They'd be washed and reused. So there was a significant decline in recyclable or non-recyclable cups being used, or plates, or all that sort of stuff. Just fantastic outcomes. But it costs money, as I say, so I'm interested if we can get some response, if not today, ultimately, about programs where we might support those sorts of endeavours. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, Council of the City is working closely with the Plastic Free Places program, which is what you're referring to in terms of the commercial operators.
Yep.
In last year's Innovation Garden initiative that the CEO had set up, the Waste and Resource Recovery team put forward an initiative to effectively stand up a process for sustainable city events. Major events, Gold Coast has a process in place already. They work with a contractor to make sure that they've got a 3 to 4 bin system depending on the event. That's not the case at city events. We were lucky enough to secure a place in the Innovation Garden, and unfortunately in this financial year that will not be proceeding with budget constraints. So we can, if it's of interest to the committee, bring back that proposal at some point for discussion, but that's the current state.
Okay. Well, at some point in time might move a general business that we sort of seek to invest in that, or seek to improve the outcomes at events. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Young. Councillor Tozer.
I just want to say that the people of Division 9 are very keen to outperform the Palmy Army, and so I was wondering whether the stickers that you've shown in the picture, in the graphic, can be provided as social media graphics for us to kind of prep our community out there, and can they be converted into something we can use on socials, just to, because when that contaminant report comes out by division, I want to make sure that we are way ahead of Palm Beach.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for your question and your query. Councillor, the intention initially will be not to spread the information far and wide, otherwise that will potentially influence the results that we see from that behaviour change program. Certainly happy to share that information following, but if we put too much information out there, similar I think to what was said previously, people will change their behaviours before we've had a chance to measure the success of this program. But contamination is an issue that is ongoing, and certainly, as Christy mentioned, it is mentioned in the monthly reports about how contamination is doing. We can certainly follow that up so that you can keep that front and centre of mind to have a look how the various divisions are performing against each other.
So I'm just trying to interpret the answer there. We want you to keep contaminating your rubbish for now, so the data collection later makes more sense.
Through the Chair, we'll provide you with the stuff for Instagram and Facebook and whatever after we do the first bin audit.
Yeah, and when's that going to be?
That way we get the baseline to see whether this behaviour change campaign is worth the investment going forward if the city choose to continue it on. Otherwise, we could not be successful.
When's the bin audit?
Through the Chair, thank you, Councillor. The audits will begin. Phase 1 will be in October, November, and then we'll have Phase 2 from February to May. Now, how that will look as far as whether all of the residents that are participating will be concluded in October, November, that will be part of the service planning in September. So we'll keep you updated with that information via the councillor newsletter to let you know when they'll be rolled out and when that'll be complete. The first bin audits will be completed.
Right. So sometime between November and Christmas, your team will provide us some social media graphics or something so we can communicate how to reduce contaminants after that first kind of phase of... Yeah, am I reading that correctly? Through
you, Madam Chair. Councillor, that will be the... we're not committed yet to whether all of the residents will be, the first round of audits will be completed in October, November, that we may have to do some of those first audits in February, March of next year, but that will be part of the service planning that we do next month to understand how that will be rolled out. 26,000 households to complete that in 2 months may not be doable, so that's why we may have to have that, the first audits occurring during February, March next year.
Just through you, Madam Chair, to close out that question, Councillor Tozer, there's two prongs to this activity. There's the citywide marketing, which isn't tied to the Lift the Lid program. That will be circulated, those assets will be circulated to all councillors to encourage good behaviour. If you choose to ramp up your distribution of those materials around October to November of 2025, that is your choice. But
is that going to wreck anything, or?
It's not that it would wreck it.
Less contaminants in the bins.
Yeah, so it's not going to wreck it. You would just be amplifying a campaign that's already in market.
Okay.
The difference between doing that and then obviously saying this is the bin tagging program, this is what it will look like, it's coming to your area, be a good global citizen, is that by doing that, you might actually you might interfere with our understanding of long-term behaviour change as opposed to just short-term behaviour change,
right,
because people are likely to put on a show of good behaviour for a short-term period. So what we wouldn't be asking councillors to do at that period is, hi, for the next 2 months I really recommend that you have great behaviour so we can beat Division 13.
I'm not going to word it like that. But do you want to, I mean, I suppose what I'm getting at is I think every council in this room has a close relationship with two groups of people. Firstly, the people that follow their Facebook pages and the people they come across all the time. And also, they tend to have quite a good relationship with the administrators of larger Facebook groups that aren't often managed by the councillor, but are managed by independent people from the community. And in Mudgeeraba, there's two pages. One's got 20,000 followers. It's the Mudgeeraba Community Connect page. And then there's, or maybe 30,000 followers. And then there's another 20,000 that follow Mudgeerabarians. And everyone in our community follows those pages to get information. And so it occurs to me that might not form part of the whole of city approach to communication, but I'm telling you, in my community, those places are where people are going to go for information. So if there's a video or there's a social media graphic or there's some sort of informative behaviour change mechanism, I encourage you to engage with your local councillors, even Councillor Gates, who's clearly not feeling well, to communicate that. And I appreciate that. I don't want to expand your social media campaign or your marketing campaign beyond the realms of your current budget, but sometimes officers understate the influence that councillors have in their community when doing these sorts of things.
And through you, Madam Chair, we would never understate your influence.
Can't imagine.
As part of the broader citywide campaign.
There's been no change in the bins programs over the last little while where...
As part of the broader campaign, we would be really appreciative if councillors could amplify that good use message.
Right, and that's going to happen between October and November this year. Around about.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor, yes, that will occur. The awareness campaign will occur October, November, and then we'll do some further work again during that February to May period as well. But as a general thing, any opportunity to focus and promote the correct use of a bin outside of this campaign would obviously be very welcomed at any time. We're always trying to encourage people to use the bin correctly and drive down those contamination rates. So yes, we appreciate any support that can be provided in this space.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. While we're on that specific topic and noting I know that it's outside of this targeted program, but the invite for councillors to nominate a couple of divisional events for your team to attend and provide some of that education piece, the blurb that we got didn't speak to any timeframes for that. Do you have an idea of when that would occur, or is that just a rolling thing throughout the financial year?
To you, Madam Chair. We are aiming to do that towards the end of this calendar year and then into the start of the calendar year, just depending on what events get nominated. We're actually going to procure an experienced company to do that engagement. We'll work with them to understand a risk assessment of the events that are nominated, and then we'll come up with a schedule, ideally at least one per division, for those for that company to attend, and we will then come back to councillors with what that looks like.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully a brief closing question. Because I am a curious councillor and I was having a look at our green organics contamination rates, I just wonder, and I think we're doing pretty well, we might even pit Div 9, the differentiation of major and minor contamination. Just wondered if you could just briefly explain to me the threshold and whether perhaps minor, does it present any more consistent problem pattern behaviour, being, you know, a major is maybe a one-off, or if that's all just anecdotal at this stage?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor. Major and minor. Major will be when they will not pick up the bins because there's too much contamination in there, whereas minor contamination, perhaps the bin has already been lifted and they see that contamination go through the hopper, for example. So major contamination and minor contamination, if I understand your question correctly, all of these, whether major, minor, do create a problem, because when you add all of the little bits of contamination up, you get those, you know, a larger amount there that's problematic. But probably what I would say that might be more helpful is there are two types of contaminating people, I suppose. There are people who accidentally put the wrong thing in the bin. So they're those people who I mentioned who put garden organics in a plastic bag and put it into their bin, or they're raking up all of their material and the plant pot goes in there or something like that. So they're accidental, and this bin tagging program will be really helpful for people like that and just draw attention to some of those behaviours. Then there are some people who just actively do the wrong thing and put, for example, building materials in there and things that they know shouldn't go in there. And so really when we're looking at contamination, we're sort of looking at those two types of people through these types of activities that we're doing. So we're trying to address that. And further to that, what the audits have found when we've previously audited green organics loads is that generally most people are doing the wrong thing. So it's only, you know, one every 10 or so bins, for example, that are doing the wrong thing. So we're really trying to approach those people, and that's through those reports that you're getting, that's what you're seeing, and those kinds of things. So we couldn't say, I wouldn't suggest one is worse than the other. We need to be approaching contamination across all those, across the major and the minor, because major could be someone that's just simply made a mistake and didn't realise they'd done the wrong thing. Minor could be someone who's actively done the wrong thing. So we're trying to approach it from all angles.
Thank you. Are there any final questions? I am very happy to move this item, and if I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Young. Thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation, officers. Obviously, this is a positive engagement educational tool that will hopefully reduce the contamination rates of our green bins. We know that contamination in any waste stream has impacts on how we process it at the end, and there are real financial and environmental motivations to ensure that we have the lowest rates of contamination possible. So I welcome this trial, and we really look forward to seeing what the results are. Sounds like there's some competitive tension in the room, so it'll be great to see where it lands. So that is moved. I'll leave that as my opening. Would anybody like to speak against the recommendation on the screen? No, and we'll take that as my close. All in favour? And that is carried unanimous. Thank you, officers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors.
Can you give me a call sometime so we can talk about that other?
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Councillors, we'll now move on to item 7, which is our closed session reports. First of those is 7.1, which is a proposed compulsory acquisition of an easement in Stapylton.
Move we go into closed, Chair.
Which we need to go into close for to discuss negotiations relating to the taking of land by a local government. Can I have a seconder?
Yes.
Thanks, Councillor Young. All in favour? And we will move into close. So we've just come out of a closed session to discuss item 7.1, which is required to be discussed in closed. I've moved it. Can I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Wilkinson. I'll hold a need for a statement. Would anybody like to speak against this motion? No, and with that, I'll take the vote. All in favour? And that is carried. Councillor Doran, did you vote? Yep, great. Okay, moving on to item 7.2, I'll just bring councillors' attention to a procedural motion that's been proposed by officers. We've had a late notice that there's a request that this item be deferred, the reasons for which is that we are still awaiting the final commentary from the Treasury, and it's the preference of the administration that we are aware of any amendments that are required before we make a recommendation on this item. Noting that I'm sure everybody's had a read and may have some questions that might be worth fleshing out before those amendments come through. I am opening it up to questions, should anyone have any. However, the change recommendation on the screen will be that it be deferred for decision at a future Wastewater and Energy Committee. Yes, Councillor Tozer.
So my question is the information from Treasury likely to be received before the 26th of August?
Through the chair, that's our hope.
Right. So I suppose the reason I asked that is obviously the next Water and Waste Committee is in September sometime, whereas the next council meeting is on the 26th of August. So if we got the advice before the 26th, would it be better for it to just be dealt with? I don't know the answer to that question. But
Through the chair, it would probably make very little difference. We're still operating as we would anyway. It's just formalising the contract between ARRC Gold Coast and the city, and ARRC Gold Coast isn't a company until such time as we receive an ABN from Queensland Treasury anyway. So Queensland Treasury has comments, will potentially have comments on the SFA itself, as well as they need to provide us with an ABN to actually form a company.
So there's basically no time pressure anyway, because we can't do anything until they respond regardless.
Correct.
Yeah,
Through
cool.
the chair.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks. So we have a mover in Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. While the opportunity exists to have any further questions on the Service Funding Agreement report as it's presented in today's agenda, does anybody need us to move into close to discuss that, or are we happy to defer it till when the final recommendations of Treasury are made available? Okay.
So my question then, maybe it needs to be enclosed, but probably is okay. So at the moment, ARRC is advertising for a number of roles. Is the Services and Funding Agreement required for the appointment of those roles?
Through the chair, the ABN's required for the appointment of those roles.
Right, so we can't actually appoint those people until Treasury gets back to us anyway.
That's correct. Through the chair.
Awesome, that's on it. All good, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, would you like to open? Is it Councillor Young? No. Anybody wishing to speak against? Take that as you close, and we'll take the vote. All those in favour of a deferral? And that is carried. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Grant. And that brings us to item 8, which is general business. I'm not aware of any general business items. Are there any that arose from any of today's discussions? No. Right. Well, with that, we will close the meeting at 9:55. Thank you very much for everyone's attendance.